Hello and welcome to Round the Square with me, Charlie Brown, a podcast where in the time it takes to walk around Northampton Square, we hear all about the art and craft of podcasting from someone here at City University. Today, slight departure from the usual concept. We're here with Tim Utzig. Good to see you, Tim.
Hello, Charlie.
Fellow MA podcasting student. So we're going to hear about podcasting, but we're also going to hear about some exciting things that Tim's up to. But first, as always, we start at Danny's Café, where our journey begins. We've got our coffees, and we start walking and talking. We're going to hear all about you, Tim, and the podcasting you're doing, and the adventures you're up to. So tell us about yourself and what you're up to.
Yeah, so my name's Tim Utzig. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, over in the U.S., if you couldn't tell from my accent. And I was doing my undergrad in journalism, and I went into the career field to work in something completely separate, and I've decided to make the career shift into podcasting and make the jump and move over here from the US over here to London.
And just to lift the bonnet up, we've obviously worked together on various things, and if you tune into Word on the Square, and if you have not, shame on you. But there's lots of content there, and you'll hear lots of stuff from Tim. But we worked together on a podcast called Running Blind. So tell us a little bit about that itself, which was a really great experience.
Yeah, so you and I and a couple of our colleagues worked on that incredible series. I mean, it's one of the things I'm really proud of from our early days here at City. And so, you know, I'm walking around, we're doing Round the Square right now. I have my guide dog, Elisa, with us. And so I'm visually impaired, part of the blind community, and that particular project meant a lot to me. You know, guide running and things like Achilles International and disability sports are a really big part of my life and something I'm really passionate about. And so the opportunity we had to kind of delve into telling that story of a guide runner and that relationship with an athlete and kind of creating that experience of blind runners, it was really special to me and had a close place to my heart, but also being able to do it with a group of colleagues that, you know, we worked so well together. And we had the opportunity to create this beautifully soundscape project that I'm incredibly proud of that we got to publish and put out there. Just
as a little note for listeners, you may have seen from the title, this is supposedly running round the square, a new concept, a new bonus concept. But just to make it clear, there is no running going on round this square. Because the RTS production team made it very clear that health and safety would not allow me to be running around this square. Also the fact that, of course, it would be about 30 seconds of interview, which really would be very silly.
Waivers required.
Yes, waivers required. But so that was the podcast before. But of course, there's other stuff you're working on. So tell us about what your new projects are.
Yeah, so with all the time here at City, I've really, I feel like I've gained a lot of knowledge, but also I've carried this passion for always wanting to kind of tell my own story, but tell other people's stories and kind of do my own thing, create my own lane. And so with the help of people here at City and, you know, what I'm doing, I'm creating a podcast launching called Taking Off the Shades. And it's a podcast where we'll kind of be delving into these conversations with people who don't necessarily get highlighted in the mainstream. Or if they do, it's more in an inspiration porn kind of way, a disability porn, if you will, where these, you know, different blind people or people with disabilities are getting highlighted in such a way as, oh, look at this, you know, special blind person going to the store, doing these menial tasks, rather than some of the incredible things people with disabilities are out there doing, whether it's Paralympic athletes or, you know, stand-up comedians, world famous speakers. There's all sorts of different things, and it's not necessarily just people with disabilities who don't get covered in these lights. It's people with stories that are worth telling that the mainstream doesn't focus on. And I believe that, you know, I have some unique life experiences that I've been through, losing my vision when I did, and I'm working on my interview skills. I'm nowhere near the best, and trying to evolve the show and have a conversation with someone, a very honest conversation about their story and what makes it so interesting.
And thanks to Tim, I certainly learned that term, inspiration porn, which I think is a great, striking way of distinguishing what you're intending to do. And also just to make clear to everyone that all of the details are both about Running Blind, the podcast we just mentioned, and Taking Off the Shades. It'll all be there in the show notes if you want to catch up on that. Now, we're coming towards the end, so we're near Danny's Café. And this is, of course, the point where in the program we always like to ask for a tip what would your tip be for anyone considering, particularly anyone who perhaps feels that it's not something they could actually do? And how would you inspire them, as it were, to do it?
Sure, there could be a whole host of reasons someone doesn't feel like they can do it, or they feel like they have setbacks, or different things holding them back. I've certainly faced that. But, that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. And the podcast industry especially is a very new one, a very fast-growing one, but a very inclusive one, and becoming more inclusive by the day. And I think there's lots of room for any different types of stories, everyone from any different background, to tell a story, but tell a story in a different and a new and an interesting way. So I think it's just about getting started, actually taking that plunge, because it's 100% worth it.
And that's a great piece of advice to end on, but because this is special content, this is a bonus episode, and because basically I'm in charge, I have given the nod from our extensive RTS production team. I'm going to take one more lap, because there's plenty more to talk about, because we've already mentioned about running, but this is particularly topical, because what have we got ahead? I've got to check my timer. I've got the app for the London Marathon. We are 3 days, 17 hours away from, dare I say it, Tim, you actually running in the London Marathon. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so let's hope I finish it. But yeah, so this, I will be running in the 2024 London Marathon this year. This is my first ever marathon. I've never run a marathon before. And it's,
This is just to prove, listeners, that this is actually a live, but we are walking around the square. Contrary to what some people might say, who seem to believe, we have had listeners contact the program to say they don't believe that we actually walk around the square. Are we not walking around the square?
Oh, we are very much walking around the square, and you very much have people talking to your guide dog.
Exactly. So, let's go back to what you were saying.
Yeah, so I'm super thrilled to be running the 2024 London Marathon. I've never done a marathon before, but I've always wanted to, and thanks to Achilles and some of the people and guide runners I've met here in London, I've worked my way up and had been granted this opportunity to get a spot in the London Marathon. And so it's come up really fast. Like Charlie said, 3 days away. I've been training for this for, about 4 months now. It's all been building up to this. I've got, family and friends flying out from the US to come watch. It's a big deal, and I'm really excited, pretty nervous. 26 miles it's a long way, but I feel ready. I feel confident. It's going to be an amazing experience.
And of course, this is a great year, all the build up to 2024 Olympics, but also the Paralympics. Presumably, are you feeling positive in a more general sense about what we're seeing in terms of accessibility to sports and encouragement and diversity and all these things that are really important? And what's your feelings on that? I know that you've been doing some great interviews recently with various people from sports.
Yeah, I think the growth it's exponential. It's been growing faster and faster. I've always been frustrated with the growth of disability sports because I want it to grow as quickly as possible, and I want it to be up there with mainstream sports right now, right this second. But of course, that's not how things work, and it takes time for these things to grow, and it takes time to integrate some of these things as from, a mainstream perspective, to integrate it and for it to become, a part of everyday culture where people just think things like goalball or blind running or the Paralympics and all these different sports that your everyday Joe wouldn't have heard of, for him to start taking an interest into. But I think things have come a long way. I think different host countries for the Olympics have done a lot to promote the Paralympics, which follows after that within their host city, which has done a lot of good for the Paralympics as a whole, for not only for the actual athletes themselves, but for the viewership, for the support, and all the way down to the grassroots and the funding for these sports to help them grow further. So I think they've come a long way. Like you said, in taking off the shades, I've talked to a couple different athletes in the disability world. One who is Sofia Gonzalez, who is a amputee Paralympic sprinter for the Swiss team. She has an incredible story. And David Scott, who is a GB goalball player, who also has a crazy story of success and failure in getting to the spot he's at now in elite athletics. So I think it's a great thing to get involved with, whether you are an athlete competing or someone supporting from the outside.
Excellent stuff. We look forward to seeing that. Now, we are approaching yet again the end of our journey, and this time I can see the RTS producer waving at me. She's making it very clear that we do need to bring this to an end. I can't be breaking the T&Cs too much of this concept. So, Before we get, again, the tradition is we always ask for a piece of advice. So this time, what's your tip for anyone that wants to get into, maybe not necessarily marathon running, but maybe a bit more sort of fitness, sports or whatever, anyone that might feel, again, that it's not for them? What would your advice be?
Oh, it all starts with just putting on your shoes, or whatever that first step is for you. Just lace up the shoes and just start. Whether that's 2 hours of running outside and doing crazy miles, or if that's just 10 minutes in your living room of doing some basic workouts that you found on YouTube. Anything at all, getting out there, whether you have a disability or not, that's all you need to do is get started and just build a consistent program. And I mean, that'll help anyone. It doesn't matter who you are.
Excellent. We always love to end around the square on some positive, uplifting advice. That particularly so, and really good advice to end on. And as I say, all of the details about this will be on the website. But really enjoyed that. It's been an eventful walk around the square today, particularly, but it's been a really interesting one. And I think again it returns to that whole subject that I think we repeat over and over again. Perhaps hopefully not boringly, the fact that podcasting is all about just doing it. Get out there, do it. Anybody can do it, and this is a great medium. If you are thinking about just expressing yourself, finding your voice, then hopefully we've helped inspire you to do that. So thank you, Tim. Thank you for Tim for today, and thank you, dear listener, for listening in today. As always, all the details on wordonthesquare.com. Make sure you subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, I'm Charlie Brown. See you around the square.